Hi, I'm Jack Canfield, and welcome to another episode of Talking About Success. And with me today is Dan Riordan. He's a seasoned technology company executive with over 30 years of experience in startup companies, and he's currently the president and COO of Think HR. Think HR is a human resources knowledge solutions company with over 100 employees and growing 40% year over year for the last 4 years. Now, Dan's been on a journey over the last few years, which began when he reached a crossroads. He was 50 years old, had a failing personal life, he was overweight, he had high blood pressure, and a growing company. And he realized that in order to scale the company, he had to scale himself. And to do this, he had to start questioning everything. And he soon realized that the assumptions he had made in all areas of his life were dead wrong. And he dubbed these moments cauliflower moments, those times when you realize something you always thought was right is wrong. So let's talk about, well, first of all, let me welcome you to the show.
Thanks, Jack.
Glad to have you here. I wanted to tell us why you would call it cauliflower moments.
Well, the words cauliflower moments came out of this discovery process of starting to question everything. And one of the things that happened in this process was the questioning of my nutrition. And I read a great article about these amazing health benefits of cauliflower. And in there, I had this realization of I hated cauliflower, and I had spent my whole life despising it. And all of a sudden, I had to question why. And as soon as I opened my mind that maybe there was more to it, I found out that it was an amazing thing to consume, roasted, mashed, in a sauce, all sorts of ways that I now love cauliflower. But that realization drove me to now question so many pieces of my work life and my personal life and my health that it's just been a transformational process.
So why is this process that you've created, why is this so important? Why is this cauliflower moments, these awarenesses of our assumptions that we've made that are wrong, why is that so important?
Yeah, it's really important because what I've started to notice is these assumptions are starting to have catastrophic effects in all areas of our lives and our society. These catastrophic effects play out in the workplace in a big way. There's all sorts of statistics. One I quote often is in 2015, the stats say there was $550 billion cost to corporations for a lack of productivity. And a lot of the productivity loss is around all sorts of things driven by bad assumptions and bad processes. In our health, when you look at the statistics, in last year, they said that there's 140 million Americans with some kind of chronic illness now. And they forecast in the next 15 years, it's going to be 170 million people. There's a lot of bad assumptions that are going on there that are having huge impact on people. And I really have kind of come to a process that's helped me question a lot of things and come to a lot better decisions.
So you talk about questioning your assumptions. How do you do that?
So what I've done, Jack, is I try to develop something that allowed me to question everything in a really fast process. And the where I started was, I started from a construct of signals. I have an engineering background, and so I tend to always strip everything down into a signals or some kind of a thing that relates to me in that analytical world. But the signals come into all of us from all areas of our lives. And I started to listen to signals in a very different way. Usually we take the signals and we process them against what I've kind of defined as our BVIs. And it's not the British Virgin Islands. I love that place. But this is your beliefs, your values, and your illusions. And what I started noticing in myself is every time I was getting a signal, it would hit my BVIs and it would drive an instant assumption about what I should or shouldn't do. And those assumptions, I've come to find out, are programmed in all of us in a dead wrong. Those programmings come from our parents, it comes from our advertising, it comes from software or systems that we're using. They all have a reason why they're trying to program us a certain way. And I've really realized we all got to take control of that programming and programs ourselves in a different way. Staying in the BVIs is kind of a comfortable place, but we got to start reacting not from the comfort zone and making easy decisions. We got to make great decisions.
Okay, so we have BVIs. How do we know we have them, or how do we know what to question?
Yeah, so what I do there is when I feel that initial assumption, when I look at, okay, I'm assuming I need to say this or I need to react this way, I go through a little bit of a process that's driven by a Bible verse. 1 Corinthians 8:2 says, to those who think they know, they need to know more. And that process led me to two questions. One question is, what else can I know or should I know about this? And where did my BVIs come from? Those two simple tests allow me to question everything. And this questioning has had profound results.
Now, to question it, you have to be aware of it. Most people, I think, are kind of living in a unawareness of their values, their beliefs, their assumptions, their illusions. What do you recommend to people to become aware so they actually want to do this?
Yeah. Wow. So the awareness factor, I'll give a couple of examples of signals. One example of a signal is, check engine light comes on in your car. When that happens in your car, Jack, do you unplug the wire? Do you ignore it?
No.
Do you take it to the shop?
I do.
You take it to the shop. But in today's society, a lot of us tend to unplug the light. We go to the doctor and we get some medication. Or in our businesses, we ignore it. We just assume, oh, well, that event that just happened, it's not going to happen again. So we'll just ignore it and hope that, that employee issue or whatever just goes away. When I start to look at signals, another great signal, give you one that driving my car. I used to be a maniac. I used to be the guy on the freeway that was going 80 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic, thinking I'm getting to where I'm going faster. Then there's a great traffic app that came out called Waze, W-A-Z-E.
I have that.
You have it? Okay, so I started using Waze. I drive the same 45-minute drive. I started driving on Maniac Way, and then I started driving at 65, never changing lanes, and having a nice cruise. Maximum change in my destination time was 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I put my life at risk. I put getting a ticket, a crash, potentially. I know I pissed off a lot of other people, all for 2 minutes. And that was on the best day. Many days it was the same or worse. And it really, this realization of your illusions can have such profound impact on the way you act. And what I find is the signals are everywhere, and they really start noticing. Just start noticing the signals coming into you on a daily, minute-by-minute basis, and you start to have these pause questioning moments where you can really core into, man, what else could I know about this to react differently? And it's a really fun process.
Now, before we came on air, you shared a story with me in your company, and you were talking about an employee who someone called and said they're acting a little wacky. Share that story. I thought that was really illustrative of what you're talking about.
Yeah, so in that case, it's a business story, and what it was we have a remote facility, and we had an employee who's been a great employee of our company, and all of a sudden, one day I had 3 people come into my office saying, this employee was acting out and acting in a bad way. And in the old incarnation of me, I would have blown that signal off. I would have said, employee's probably having a bad day. Let's just see what happens. What I did was I got in my car the next morning and I drove to that facility and I sat down with that employee and I said, hey, what is happening? This isn't you, because this is not the way you act. You're leaving a very large wake, and I always tend to resort to boats because I love boats. And you can go 5 miles an hour, leave a low wake. You can go 10 miles an hour, leave a destructive wake. And then you can go fast and get a small wake again. But I was like, you're making a big wake, and that's not really what you want to do. What's going on? He told me, I'm frustrated. My supervisor's not listening to me, and I'm really frustrated. And so then we ended up having a really cool talk about it. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, I was in that facility, and the employee came to me, and he sat me down, and he goes, thank you. You changed my life. I didn't realize I was on a bad course, but I was both personally and professionally. I was acting out at home as well, and I've got my stuff back in order. And the last month, I've been the #1 performer. Look at my stats. I'm killing it, and I'm all in, and thank you. And it was a great moment of me just saying, I have to pay attention to every signal, and I can't just react from my BVIs at an assumption. I got to dig deeper. And all throughout our corporation, I do that now, endlessly.
And you've been producing 40% year over year, so doing very well. Now, you've written a book about this. Talk about the purpose of your book.
Yeah, the purpose of my book is, it's a purpose all about signals and starting to listen to your signals and taking these moments of assumption, which I call these cauliflower moments where you've assumed something, and starting to realize that those assumptions might be dead wrong. And so as you go through the enterprise, There are all sorts of areas that we make assumptions, and I'll give you a couple of easy examples. One is interviewing. You assume people know how to do it. I went and asked the senior executive team of our company, has anyone ever taught you? And the unanimous answer was no. Yet, single most critical thing we're all doing is making sure that we get the right people into our company that can help propel this enterprise forward. And so, moment of pause, realization. Now, I questioned it. I tore into it, and now we've recreated the entire interview process to yield us phenomenal results. And you can look through your enterprise and start to look at all the areas you're making assumptions. And that's what this book is about, is kind of leading people through the workplace and all the areas of assumptions and start to give them some new ways at looking at how to drive great results inside of their companies.
Now, you've been speaking about this with people as well, right?
Yep.
And getting really good response, I understand.
Yeah, the speaking has been going great. I've been out, I've been talking, and it resonates with people because as I talk to a group of senior executives running $100 million companies, and afterwards, every one of them came up and said, I made 7 notes. I made 50 notes of all the areas of assumptions that you highlighted that I've been totally ignoring inside of my enterprise that I need to go pay attention to. And just that realization is an amazingly fun process for me because I really realized that I can help a lot of people in a unique way.
Well, what I love about this is I have this belief that how you do anything is how you do everything. And so while you're bringing it into the workplace, I would hunch based on, and I'd just be curious to hear your reaction, that the people are then carrying the same skill set back into their families and their homes and their churches and their nonprofit operations with their neighbors, all those kind of things, their health. You find that to be the case?
I absolutely find it to be the case. I found it to be the case with my own self. I have transformed the way I eat, the way I exercise, the way my relationships work, the way I interact with other people. In the case of my driving, my reaction for other people used to be very negative if they would cut me off. And now I look at that completely differently, and I don't think about them in a negative way. So I now look at it with a higher level thought process and think differently about it. So yeah, it's been pretty transformational, and I see other people using it in the same way.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jack. It's been a pleasure.
I look forward to reading your book, and I look forward to applying it in my own life. I pay attention to a lot of signals, but I'm sure I'm not questioning them as well as I should. Anyway, if you want to get in touch with Dan, just look at the website below. Go there. He's got a book. He speaks. He consults. And you can start paying attention to the signals in your life instead of ignoring them, which is mostly what we do on almost every level of our country and culture. This can be a very game-changing book, so I appreciate you joining me today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message.